Jom just react kat video ni. Malays. Hey guys, welcome back to my react. Today we are reacting to Can You Beat Elden Ring at level 1 without being good. So I'm in the mood for some Elden Ring. BuhBye just dropped a video, pretty cool video, so you can check that out. So I've been posting a lot on BuhBye has been posting a lot on main channel, so we need to get some love on the second channel. Without further ado, let's get to it.
Can you beat Elden Ring at level 1? The answer is obviously yes. People have been doing these sorts of challenges for years with every FromSoft game. Hell, you got people beating the game with no weapons, or on a dance pad, or with literal bananas. But see, these people are all god gamers. They're really, really good. I, however, am not. You will not catch me beating these games with a Ring Fit controller. That's where I think this gets interesting. Can someone like me beat Elden Ring at level 1? If I took advantage of every tool, tactic, glitch, and exploit, could I do it? That's what I wanted to answer, and that's what this video is about. So for the next however many minutes, I'll walk you through the journey of my no leveling run in Elden Ring.
He made his character look like Chad.
First, I chose the Deprived class, since, in case you weren't aware, this is the only class that starts at level 1. As you can see, this gives me 10 in each stat across the board. This is a problem because Elden Ring has lots of stat requirements for weapons and spells, so this immediately limits my options. Then I designed my character, and there's really only one idea that felt appropriate for this type of playthrough. With that, I was in the game, died to the tutorial boss, arrived in Limgrave, and then made a beeline to the site of Grace to get my horse. From there, I ran straight to Caelid to get Radagon's Soar Seal from Fort Farah. You can get it by climbing this ladder, dropping down this hole, and then doing a bit of platforming past some routes. With this talisman, I get +5 to Vigor, Endurance, Strength, and Dexterity, at the cost of my defenses being lowered a bit. 20 free stat points on a level 1 character is incredibly worth it though, and I don't think I ever took this off for the entire run. After collecting that, it was time to get a proper weapon. I'd watched a couple speedruns of this game, and I knew how strong Hoarfrost Stomp could be, so getting that was my next priority. To get it, I rode around Stormvale Castle and into Liurnia by taking the side path to the right of the castle. From there, I just rode north to this point on the map to get the Ice Rind Hatchet, and then I rode a bit farther north to kill an invisible scarab next to the Caria Manor. The hatchet has the Hoarfrost Stomp skill built in, but the Ash of War lets me put it on any weapon, so I grabbed both to have options. As you can see, even on an unupgraded weapon, this skill is stupidly strong and has a relatively low FP cost. Not only does it do ice damage, but it also inflicts frostbite. This does a huge chunk of damage, kind of like bleed, in addition to reducing the enemy's defenses. I opted to put this on an Uchigatana I got from some nearby catacombs, so I could have both bleed and cold on the same weapon. I was doing so much damage that I decided it was unnecessary to even upgrade my weapon at this point, so I went straight to the first major boss, Margit. Margit was actually pretty easy. I used the stomp move a little, but for the most part I just fought him straight up and dodged a lot. I tried using this fight as an opportunity to warm up rather than just steamrolling him via weapon upgrades. I got him on my third try. Not really much to say yet as far as boss strategy and analysis goes, but you'll see more of that as the bosses ramp up in difficulty. With Margit dead, I got a talisman pouch and thus access to a second talisman slot. Assuming ice stomping would be a staple for the rest of my playthrough, there was one early talisman that could help out with that, but it required me to make a sacrifice.
No, don't kill her like that.
I'm sorry. Back to Stormvale, Godric was next up on the list, and I began running over to him. By the way, running past enemies is how I handled pretty much every on-foot section of the game. If you're familiar with the level layouts, this is fairly easy to do, so I won't be detailing these sections. You might also be wondering why I'm wearing no armor, since this wasn't part of the challenge, and all it does is increase the odds that I'll get one-shot by something. While that is true, I'd like you to consider that wearing no armor equals fun in your video. So, yeah. Anyway, it's time for Godric. Just like Margit, Godric was surprisingly easy, even with an unupgraded weapon, and I also got him on my third try. Aside from just dodging and playing like normal, one thing I noticed is that when he does this roll move, it's good to stay close to him so that the follow-up attack is this easy to dodge aerial attack. If you're too far, he does these homing air attacks that are harder to dodge. But yeah, not a lot to say, he's fairly simple. With Godric dead, I gained his Great Rune, which gave me the ability to increase every stat by 5 points at the cost of a rune arc. This was a huge potential buff, but I didn't want to rely on this since this, the only renewable source of rune arcs was by farming rats, and that sounded very tedious and annoying. For now though, I powered up. Next, it was on to Rhea Lucaria Academy. I decided to also level up my Ice Rind Hatchet to +5 for extra damage. I went with my axe instead of the Uchi-Katana since it only took Somber Stones to upgrade the axe, and collecting Somber Stones was a lot easier than collecting the normal stones, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to fully commit to the Uchi-Katana yet. Anyway, it was time for Sif, the Red Wolf of Radagon. Again, not much to say for this one. Attacks didn't one-shot me, and I was doing decent damage, so it wasn't that hard and only took me 2 tries. Things seemed to be looking good. I felt confident. There was one catch though. I needed 16 dexterity to wield the axe, and I only had 15 with the Radagon talisman. This meant that I needed to have Godric's Great Rune active to meet the dex requirement and use the axe. Burning through all of my rune arcs seemed like a bad idea, so I decided to look for a better solution. And good news, there was one. I could get the prosthesis wearer heirloom from Millicent, the woman in the Church of the Plague, by doing her questline and giving her the golden needle. However, in order to do this, I need...
Which is the hardest boss. If you do this questline, that the quest will lead to the hardest boss on Elden Ring, which is Valencia.
to kill the boss, Commander O'Neill. I thought about just fighting him straight up, but then I remembered. This video is supposed to be about being clever and showcasing fun strats rather than just normal fights. So instead, I decided to parkour my way up onto the roots above him. From here, I just shot him with poison arrows from safety. I think this is something that some people forget you can do with pretty much every overworld boss. Since there's no real boundaries like a normal boss arena, this is an option. And despite how it trivializes the fight, it's still kind of satisfying because it feels like you're outsmarting the game in a way. After a few minutes, I killed Commander O'Neill, did the questline for Millicent, and got the talisman, bringing my dexterity up to 20 so I could use the ice axe without stressing about rune arcs. With that done, I went back to Rhea Lucaria to take on Renala. Alright, we're officially in real shit territory. This fight was tough. Phase 1 was a cakewalk because this part was just normal with me hitting the 3 glowing enemies to make Renala fall. And in fact, I did so much damage that I one-cycled her sometimes. But Phase 2, oh man, Phase 2. So first off, I would always run at her in the beginning of Phase 2. She does this beam attack that's fairly easy to dodge, and I can get 1 or 2 free hits in. From here though, it's a real pain as she keeps floating around, and even one misstep on my part was death. One important trick to note that's not only true for this boss, but most attacks in the game, is that you want to dodge into the attack, not with it. So with these magic orbs that home in on me, I wanted to make sure I dodged into them each time. If I made the mistake of dodging with them, my hitbox would be inside of them after I finished rolling, and then I'd get hit. Another thing I noticed is that for the first section of this fight, the most reliable way to get in a hit was when she went to use her staff as a boomerang. If I was close when she did this, I could usually get in a hit. But yeah, this fight involved a lot of suffering on my part. So many things caught me. And once you drain about half her health, she starts summoning spirits to fight you. The best way to deal with this is just by running away, since they'll eventually despawn. Do keep an eye on this dragon summon though, and don't let your guard down like I did.
And the Bloodhound. Really annoying.
What? Eventually, I had enough though. I didn't want to get good at this game. I wanted to win. That's when I decided to ask, can I poison her? Yes. Yes, I could. So next round, I pulled out my longbow, shot her with a few poison arrows, and then just kept my distance while running in circles and watching her health drain. Again, this video isn't meant to showcase me being good at the game. It's how can we beat this using anything and everything. And yeah, not a lot to say. This did the trick. 2 demigods down. It was time for me to go to the Altus Plateau and the city of Lendal. However, to get into the city, I needed to kill this draconic tree sentinel at the entrance. And he officially marks the beginning of every boss attack being a one-shot kill for the rest of the game. I died a lot to this guy. I started to learn each of his attacks, but the timing for some of them was so tight and I couldn't get it consistently. I did notice I could sneak around him to get a couple free hits in before the fight, but this didn't help too much, and my struggling continued. But this was an overworld boss, and as we established with Commander O'Neill, overworld bosses are especially susceptible to cheese strats. In this case, the answer was poison, specifically Poison Mist. You can get the Poison Mist incantation from this scarab near Castle Morn on the Weeping Peninsula. It also requires 12 faith to use, so I equipped the 2 Fingers heirloom to give myself 5 extra points in faith. You can get this talisman from a chest in the Purified Ruins in Liurnia. Then, I just snuck behind the tree sentinel and cast Poison Mist. Funnily enough, this doesn't cause him to aggro on you. He'll just sit there, slowly dying. The poison doesn't last forever though, so I needed to keep reapplying it whenever it ran out. I also noticed that there seems to be some sort of poison resistance mechanic where subsequent procs of poison take longer than the first. I'm not sure if this was a thing in past games, but it's pretty neat. Anyway, this took 16 minutes of me just sitting there and staring at his horse's ass while I waited for him to die. Remember, don't work hard, work smart. With the tree sentinel dead, I was officially allowed into the city. After taking in the sights for a few minutes, I made my way over to the Spirit of Godfrey. And oh man, Godfrey is rough. Every one of his attacks was instant death if I missed time to dodge, and I quickly learned that his stomp move is one where you don't want to dodge away or it'll catch you every time. Thinking back to my last 2 wins, I thought maybe I could be smart and pull off some bow and arrow shenanigans by running away and jumping on this ledge here, but of course, that didn't work. I would have to actually get good and beat Godfrey for real. Or would I? There was a secret weapon I could get, and now seemed like the time to get it. I needed to collect 2 items first though. First, I got the incantation Fire's Deadly Sin from the cliffside of Windmill Village. Do note though that this only appears after collecting the painting inside the fortified manor in Lendl. And this does take 19 faith to use, so for the time being, I would rely on Godric's Great Rune to meet that requirement. Next, I need to get the Erd Tree Great Shield. This is a drop after killing both tree sentinels near the outer wall Phantom Tree Site of Grace. Lucky for me, the poison mist strat worked again. Unlucky for me, this took 26 minutes of real time. But hey, I got the shield. And now I had the secret weapon, a beam cannon I could fire at will. Here's how this works. The shield has a special skill that deflects sorceries and incantations and turns them into a holy projectile attack. Funnily enough, this works with the Fire's Deadly Sin incantation since the self-damage of the fire can be deflected in the same way. It's unclear if this is a glitch or just a clever interaction, but either way, it works. At first I was a little unimpressed by the damage, but then I upgraded my shield to +6 and wow, okay. 2 more things to grab. First, the Bestial Vitality incantation that you can get from the Beast Clergyman after giving him 3 death roots will completely negate the health drain from Fire's Deadly Sin. Very handy. Second, I picked up the Opaline Bubble Tear from the Erd Tree avatar on the Weeping Peninsula. This greatly reduces the damage you take for 1 hit, and it essentially gave me 1 free hit per fight instead of just dying instantly. And finally, I was ready to fight Godfrey again. This setup was extremely effective. Spirit Godfrey is apparently pretty lazy, so he'll only walk slowly, and this means I could keep my distance pretty easily. The one issue is that Fire's Deadly Sin only lasts for 40 seconds, so recasting it was a little nerve-wracking, as I needed to make sure I had enough space and time to do so. But yeah, pretty simple with this combo. It only took me 2 tries. I just made sure to dodge in whenever he did his stomp move, and then run away to build distance. Godfrey was down, and I finally got my 4th talisman slot. Next up was Morgott's, or should I say Margit, because Margit's Shackle actually works on him too, in case you didn't know. This is an item you can buy from patches, and it allows you to pin Morgott to the ground for a few seconds. With this plus the shield strat, I just blasted him. There's not much else to say. This was incredibly easy, and I beat him on my first try. With Morgott dead, I upgraded my shield to +9 and then headed to the Forbidden Lands to fight the Fire Giant boss. This guy threatened to be a problem because not only does he have an absurd amount of health, I also wasn't going to be able to use my shield's weapon art from horseback, so that strategy probably wasn't going to work. I did, however, use the iframes from dismounting my horse pretty frequently to avoid his really big moves. There's a trick to this guy too though. It's kind of finicky and might take a few tries, but you can lure him up on this cliff on the right side of the arena, and from there, if you jump down, you can get him to follow you and fall off. This leads to one of the funniest transitions into a mid-boss cutscene with his leg breaking, and it fits so perfectly with him falling that it almost feels intentional. After that, phase 2 is pretty much the same. I just ran around him and lured him up on the same cliff, then stood back and watched him fall off to his death. This is equally funny with him falling flat on his face. Fire Giant down. Next, I let Melina burn the Erd Tree and then woke up in Ohio. Running around here was especially fun because even a sneeze from the small enemies would kill me. And then I made it to the Godskin Duo. Oh no. This is a boss that people hate even on normal playthroughs. Even if you're fully leveled, it's still hard. After a couple attempts, I quickly realized that I was going to have to just get good and learn their attacks across dozens and dozens of attempts. There wasn't any simple trick to make this easier, and that meant I couldn't rely on the Godric Great Rune to reach my 19 faith requirement for my build any longer. So without the Great Rune, I was at 15 faith. I could get 3 from Mirika's Scar Seal, but that still left me 1 point short. Fortunately, the Commoner's Garb chest piece gives a single point of faith when wearing it, and you can get this as a rare drop from the Grey Guys in Stormvale Castle. So there we go, I had 19 faith and didn't need Great Runes anymore. And hey, if I'm gonna wear a shirt, I might as well put on some pants and a helmet too. As for the fight itself, it was just a lot of pain. My main strategy was to keep my distance between myself and the duo whenever possible, and rely on the pillars to create buffers as well. I'd usually try to take out the big one first, but this was tough because his roll move kept getting me. However, I found that if I lined myself up just right, I could get him stuck on one of the broken pillars, but this wasn't always consistent. It was also incredibly risky whenever I had to reapply the fire incantation since casting it was so slow. In general, I did my best to stay patient and learn from each death. Whenever one of them was about half dead, they'd get stronger moves with more range, so I tried to keep the pressure up to deal with this as little as possible. After probably 40 attempts, I got it. For the first time in the whole run, I felt like I really earned this one. Riding that wave of happiness, I fought the Draconic Tree Sentinel on the Great Bridge and beat him. No poison mist necessary this time. I was feeling good. I was feeling confident. Then I got to the Beast Clergyman / Malekith. It's hard to describe how much pain this fight caused.
Which is kind of weird. On the Caleb, I don't know the upper, but whatever. On Caleb, when there's another Beast Clergyman, like he says before, it's another when we offer some death loop, some death loop. Isn't that is that him or is another guy? So it's just that's kind of weird, you know.
Was me. I genuinely thought I'd have to end my run here. First of all, he seems to have pretty high holy resistance, which was my only source of damage with the shield. Naturally, every move is a one-shot, and after about 5 tries, I eventually made it to his second phase. But man, I died so fast in that second phase. It was one of those deaths that was so quick that the thought of the effort that would be necessary to actually beat this guy made me want to take a nap. So I asked myself, was there anything I could do to make this easier? The answer was yes. There was an obvious tool I'd been ignoring up until now: spirit summoning. The question, however, was which spirit to go with. The obvious answer seems like the Mimic, since it's usually a powerhouse, but remember that the Mimic summon inherits all of your stats, so I felt like a level 1 Mimic was actually the worst choice I could make. Instead, I decided to go with Black Knife Tish. After watching a few videos on the subject, she seemed like a very solid choice because she has this black flame debuff that she can inflict and it just melts bosses under the right conditions. Only one problem though. I needed to essentially complete Ronnie's entire questline to reach the location where I could get this summon and upgrade it all the way. That includes killing Radon and a few other bosses. I won't go into detail for this whole process since it honestly wasn't that hard, just time consuming. But after a couple hours, I reached the Everjail that held the Black Knife ringleader who I needed to kill to get Tish as a summon. Let's see how that fight went. Pretty good. So I got her, upgraded her, and was ready to test her out. But oh no, she requires 132 FP to summon, and I only had like 70. Did I just make a huge mistake? Nope. It turns out you can use the Cerulean Hidden Tier with your Flask of Wondrous Physic. This removes the FP cost of everything for 10 seconds, and it apparently even applies to spells or summons that you didn't have enough FP for in the first place, which was very lucky for me in this scenario. Back to Malekith. My immediate impression was that Tish was helpful, but not quite as helpful as I was expecting. In order for her to get any damage off, I basically had to keep aggro on my...
Tish was like the first attack, the first blood attack. I think that's blood attack. Yeah. Blood attack that she throws drains a lot of health, and then you just keep trading. So it's really helpful actually.
Myself for the entire fight. Another quirk to this fight, sometimes it'll look like Tish is doing more damage than she actually is. Her flame attack does damage over time in addition to stealing extra HP on top of that, but the boss will recover that second bit of stolen HP when the burning wears off, so that's why Malekith's health will jump up from time to time. Phase 1 eventually became easy. I realized I could block most attacks if he got close, so I just need to back away and keep firing off at him. Phase 2 is the real issue. His attacks are big, quick, and blocking wasn't an option due to chip damage. He also has this one move where he'll flip toward me and do a massive slashing AoE. For the longest time, I kept trying to dodge away or run away, but it would never work. Eventually, I figured out you could just dodge into him.
And the problem thing about my case is every attack is literally a drain attack.
Precise timing and get behind him to be safe. And again, I need to keep aggro because Tish would just get eviscerated if he had his attention for more than 5 seconds. Tensions got high.
Shoot him.
Oh, kill him! Kill him! No!
No! That was so close.
But in the end, my patience paid off, and I got him. I didn't keep track of how many times I died, but 50 feels about right. It was time for the final area. First up was Sir Gideon. When you first find him, he stands still and monologues at you. He'll only do this on the first attempt, so I really wanted to capitalize on this and get some free damage in. And lucky me, this guy was a complete joke and a much needed palate cleanser after Malekith. The fight was over in about 20 seconds. Next up was Godfrey, the first Elden Lord. Unlike his spirit form from before, he actually likes to dash around and is much harder. While he was probably about as hard as Malekith, something about this fight felt more fair to me. There was a rhythm to this fight that I was never able to truly find with Malekith. His moves were all telegraphed very clearly, and while the timing for avoiding some of them was tight, I felt like I could do this. The first thing I noticed was that he walks toward you very slowly at the beginning, so I had enough time to do my whole buff routine after stepping inside the arena rather than before. As part of that routine, I added the skill from the Commander Standard Halberd, which was dropped from Commander O'Neill. This provides a 20% boost to damage and defense. I could have been using this earlier, but I just didn't think to do so. It can also affect allies who are close by, but Tish typically didn't stay still long enough to receive the buff. Next, the most reliable attack pattern I found to deal damage was to bait him to dash forward and stomp, and I'd roll into it, get behind him, and then run away. From there, he could do a few different things, but a lot of the time he'd do a side dodge and then a second stomp. This was all free damage though, since I was far enough away that this stomp couldn't hit me. Then, if I was lucky, I could just repeat that loop. The other big thing I noticed in phase 1 is that after dealing about a third of his health bar, he'd do a huge stomp with a shockwave that hit the entire arena. Then, for the rest of phase 1, he would just keep doing these unavoidable giant stomps. This was a problem if I was too slow and my fire buff ran out, since it was impossible to recast it without dying. So I needed to be quick enough and deal damage consistently enough to prevent this from happening. Eventually, I got pretty decent at phase 1, so let's talk about phase 2. It's a little intense.
Then, where's the... Okay, because you got a power.
No! My main strategy was to run away immediately, recast the fire incantation, and then just blast him and pray that Tish carries her weight too. He has so many quick and massive attacks, and it's just pretty overwhelming. I died so many times. And then, finally, I got it. I'm not gonna lie, I just got super lucky. I somehow broke his stance at the beginning of phase 2, just kept spamming attacks, and it was enough. Just barely. With Godfrey down, it was time for Radagon, the final boss. Radagon is a really fun fight on a normal playthrough. He has a varied and challenging moveset, and it's just a fun spectacle to see him fly around and smash stuff. On a level 1 character though, it's painful. So many moves are so quick. I kept dying, and while I got close a few times, I didn't feel like I was able to establish any sort of consistency in the ways I had with Malekith or Godfrey. It was rough. And you know, at this point, I was pretty much ready to give up. I'd already made it farther than I expected, and it didn't really seem like there was a solution to this fight, aside from just extreme precision and actually getting good, which was not the point of this run. That's what I thought, but then my friend mentioned a trick to me. Apparently, if you hit Radagon right as the fight starts and he's still turning around, he'll bug out and his AI will break. He'll freeze and he won't attack you. From there, you can slowly kill him. This is finicky though. Attacks from melee weapons or certain spells will unfreeze him, but if you just use a bow or the Carrion Slicer spell, he should stay still. I opted for a mix between Carrion Slicer and Poison Mist. And one more important note, breaking his stance will also unfreeze him. So when I got him down to about half health, I would wait for a minute or so he could recover his invisible stance meter. This process was painfully slow on a level 1 character, but hey, I'll take consistency over speed, and I was willing to use any trick. And then, finally, Radagon was dead. I had beaten the game. Of course not, I'm just kidding, it's a 2-for-1 boss fight. Elden Beast, aka the bane of my existence. I hate this guy. He's actually the worst. No, I'm not mad. Why do you think I'm mad? Also, every time I wanted to even attempt this fight, I had to go through the whole process of slowly killing Radagon each time. Before I get into the details of the fight, I want to highlight 2 more tools I added to help out. First was the Ash of War, Royal Knight's Resolve. The way this is supposed to work is it lasts 10 seconds and increases the weapon's next hit by 80%. However, it seems that it actually increases all of your damage by 80% for 10 seconds regardless of the source. So for example, you could use this skill on a weapon in your offhand, then switch back to your main weapon to get an 80% damage boost. In this case, this meant my Ice Stomp could do 80% more damage. Not only that, but it lasts for more than 1 hit using this method, so I could get multiple stomps in during that 10-second window. The second tool I added was the Bloodhound Step Ash of War. This is essentially a powered up version of Quick Step, and I put it on a dagger so I could more easily dodge attacks where I just had to run around. Now, back to the fight. This guy will always start the fight with a Fire Breath attack, and if you're quick, you can get around 6 Ice Stomps in. I also used Royal Knight's Resolve right as phase 1 ended to get extra damage in. From here, he basically always does this ring move, but it's pretty easy to avoid with Bloodhound's step. Then he has a bunch more moves he'll cycle through, but there's one that I could just not figure out, this goddamn homing orb move. It's a homing orb that will follow you for roughly 20 seconds, and it has a bunch of smaller orbs orbiting around it. The best part is it seems to move faster than you can. Rolling away, running away, Bloodhound stepping away, it didn't seem to matter. I got hit every time, and I could not find a single video of...
Okay, this I don't know. I don't know if this is the before 1.4 or 1.3, but in now there's actually what is it called, like the Wondrous Flash. There's actually a one crimson something that actually when you click it, whoever hits you, it gain health. So this is actually really helpful for that. Actually really helpful for this. So maybe he just doesn't know about that right now when you do this. So yeah.
Of a person avoiding this attack entirely. On a normal playthrough, this isn't a huge issue since you can just tank it, but for me on my level 1...
I actually do that from the BuhBye video when he zero death this game, which is very cool. You should check that out too.
One character, oof. I got close a few times. I really did, but the homing orb was just too awful. I couldn't do it, and I was cool with calling it there. I was proud of how far I made it, and it had overall been a pretty fun time. But there was one more tool I hadn't used yet. This is a tool that FromSoft makes available to every build and every character.
Okay. Cheers. All the bread. God. And he just did.
Yep, I summoned a friend to help me. Is this in the spirit of an actual challenge run? No, of course not.
Yeah.
But that's not really what this video is. I wanted to showcase all the tools, glitches, and exploits that can be used by a level 1 character to beat the game. And technically, getting a friend to help is one of them. Could I have beaten this on my own? Probably yes, but it would have taken many hours. And believe it or not, I'm not a masochist. I'll leave Elden Beast for the people who are actually good at this game. However, if you're cool with seeing shenanigans from someone who's not quite at that level, consider subscribing because I'll be making more Elden Ring videos. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.
That was an amazing video. Oh my god. Check out this guy, bro. He literally tortured himself to do this for you, for his audience. Yeah, make sure to check this guy out in the description. And yeah, I like the character that he did, which is the chat. And yeah, the strategies was really freaking good. I was freaking shocked that he can do all this. Like he do his research. Sorry, yes, he does his research, which is really fucking cool. Okay, guys, that's the end of the video, and yeah, you guys can check out the video down there and the creator of this video down there. And yeah, hope you guys like this video. If you like it, of course, like this video, of course. And yeah, subscribe. If you guys don't like my content, get us later, and it's free. Come on, man, it's free. And yeah, ring that notification bell for every time that I upload. You get notified by me. Right? Come on. And yeah, my name is Simon, and thanks for chilling with me. Bye bye.